Welcome back to the crochet tutorial with Cozy Rosie UK, and today I'm sharing with you how to crochet the Popalicious cushion and or blanket. I've combined these videos together because they all use the same stitches and pattern repeats. Just the amount of stitches you make and the number of repeats you do will decide whether or not you're making a cushion or you're making a blanket. Now before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and of course the notification bell so you never miss out on all of my crochet patterns or tutorials again. On the screen here you can see my finished Popalicious blanket where my lovely dog Emily is very much enjoying herself, having a relaxing afternoon. The yarn that I've used for this blanket is an Aran weight yarn. This is actually some old yarn that I had in my stash. And it's an Aran weight, which is the equivalent of a worsted weight yarn, and I've caked some of it up to do this tutorial because just to show you the size of these balls, they are giant 400-gram balls of yarn, and it's just too much to have on my table, so I've caked up enough to do my sample with you today in the same colours that I used for my blanket. So this is Hayfield Bonus Aran, and it has a 20% wool mix. You know I'm not the biggest fan of wool blends, and this one most definitely feels like it has some wool content. It's a little bit rough, but it does soften up. It does soften up when it's washed. So you can see that it has an 80% acrylic, 20% wool content, and those 400-gram balls are quite generous on the amount of yarn on them. You can see you get 840 meters, 520 yards. Now it looks a similar size to like a pound of love, and it's probably a similar weight as well. I'm not very good with converting weights, but yeah, there's a lot of yarn on these balls. So let's go through the amount of yarn you're going to need, whether you're making a cushion or any one of the 4 different blanket sizes that are included. So to make the cushion, you're going to need around a total of 400 meters of yarn altogether. So you need about 100 meters of your contrast color and 300 meters of your main color. I've linked in the description box where you can find these lovely big balls of yarn, so you can go and check those out. So the yarn amount you're going to need is completely dependent on what project you are making. As I've mentioned, the blanket comes in 4 different sizes, and I'm going to be giving you the instructions for all different sizes as well. For the blankets, as you can see on the screen here, we've got this lovely handy size chart, and it gives you the finished sizes and the yarn amounts there, so you can select which size you want to make and see how much yarn you need to make it. Now if you want to adjust your finished size, you can do for your blanket. The starting chain, you just add or subtract multiples of 2 from your starting chain. That goes the same for the cushion as well. I'm going to be using the recommended hook size for the yarn, which is a 5mm crochet hook. I've just grabbed my little tulip Etimo here. Of course, you're going to need some scissors and you're going to need a darning needle so you can get those ends woven in as you progress through your blanket. So gather all of your materials and let's get started. We're going to start by making a slip knot and placing that onto our hook. This blanket and the cushion are both worked in turned rows, so we're simply going to start by making our foundation chain based on the size of the project we're making. I'm going to be making a cushion today, so you can follow along with that, or I'll give you the chains required for the various blanket sizes as well. So for a crochet cushion, you're going to need to make a beginning chain of 54. For a baby blanket, you need to make a beginning chain of 110. For the lap gown, it's also 110. For the throw, it's 164. And then for the big twin blanket or the single bed blanket, you need to be making a beginning chain of 180. So make your beginning chain and I'll meet you in a moment for the remainder of row 1. Just as a reminder, for the cushion, you should have a starting chain of 54. For the baby blanket, it's 110, as is the lap gown. The throw is 164, and the twin blanket is 180. Now we're going to be working into our second chain from hook, working 1 US half double crochet, which is the same as a UK half treble crochet. Now this is the worst colour I could have chosen to show you on camera, but there's my first chain, and there's my second. If I do that, you might be able to see the hole. No. So we're going to be starting to work 1 US half double crochet into each chain across. So we yarn over the hook, insert into our first chain, yarn over, bring our loop up, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Already worked there, so there's my next one. We're just going to be working 1 half double crochet into each chain across. So continue to work 1 half double crochet into each chain across, and I'll meet you at the end of row 1. So at the end of row 1, you should have 1 half double crochet worked into each chain across, and for your cushion you will have a total stitch count of 53 half double crochets. For the baby and the lapgan you'll have 109 half double crochets. For the throw you'll have 163, and of course for that twin you'll have 179 half double crochets. Now the side that we are looking at the moment is the right side of our project, and that will become more important when we begin working our special stitch later on. Going into row 2, we begin with a chain of 1 that does not count as a stitch. We are then going to work 1 half double crochet into the same as our chain 1 and into each stitch across. We're going to be maintaining our stitch count at the end of row 2. So continue on working 1 half double crochet into each stitch across, and I'll meet you at the end of row 2. Just working my final half double crochet of row 2. We should have the same stitch count, which is for the cushion 53 half double crochets, 109 for the baby, 109 for the lapgan. We should have 163 for that throw size blanket, and of course 179 for the twin. Now going into row 3, we're going to start with our turning chain of 1. We're going to be working 1 half double crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1, and then we're going to start working front post followed by back post half double crochets to create a really nice ribbed texture. So you can see that we've already worked into that first stitch, and with our post stitches we're going to literally work around the posts. So we're going to begin working not underneath the stitch but around the post of the next stitch, where you can see the hole either side if I cover up that hole. So we're inserting our hook around the post. For the front post we go in from the front and out of the front. We yarn over to bring up our 3rd loop as normal. We pull through all 3 loops. For the back post half double crochet we yarn over the hook and come round from the back, out at the side of the post we've just worked, and back out of the back. Bring our 3rd loop up, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. We're going to alternate working 1 front post, 1 back post half double crochet all the way across. So you can see that we've just worked around this post here. So this is the next one. That was a back post, so we're doing a front post. So we yarn over, in from the front, out from the front, bring our loop up, pull through all 3. Here's the next post we're working around. This time it's a back post. So we yarn over, come out from the back and back out of the back, bring that 3rd loop up and pull through. The next one will be a front post again, and we're just going to alternate this all the way across. And you can see it brings those posts of those stitches that are worked around forwards or backwards depending on which one that you've worked, and we're looking for them to alternate. So you can see that you've got a front post, back post, front post, back post, front post, back post, front post. I'm going to repeat that all the way across, working 1 front post half double crochet, followed by a back post half double crochet, all the way across to our last 2 stitches, and then I'm going to meet you there to work our final post stitch together before finishing off row 3. So continue to work across and I'll meet you for those last 2 stitches. So I have just 2 stitches remaining, but it looks like I have 3, but we really only have 2 because we've worked around this post here. So when we reach that final post and our final stitch, we're going to yarn over the hook and work a final front post half double crochet, and then we just have 1 stitch remaining where we're working a half double crochet. Make sure you haven't got yourself confused about those last 3/2 stitches, and make sure that your stitch count is correct. So your total stitch count should match the same as it was for row 2, and the breakdown will be, for your cushion you'll have your for all sizes you'll have 2 half double crochets, and then for the cushion you'll have 26 front post half double crochets. So you can simply just count all these ribs all the way across. So you'd have 26 front post half double crochets for your cushion, 54 for your baby blanket, 54 for your lapgan, 81 for your throw, and 89 for your twin. So double check your stitch count, make sure you've still got the correct stitch count at the end of row 3. And we're going to go into row 4, where we're doing a variation of the previous row. We start by making that chain of 1 that does not count. We are then going to work 1 half double crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1. We're then going to be working around the posts that we did on the previous row. It's just that it's reversed, because that front post that we worked for that last one, when we turn, it becomes a back post and shows on the back of our fabric. So for row 4, we're going to yarn over. We've worked that first half double crochet into that first stitch as the same as our chain 1, and then this is our first post to work around, and we're starting this time with a back post half double crochet. We then work a front post half double crochet around the next, and this should be closer to you, followed by a back post again. We've got that front post around the next, back post around the next. So we're not changing the way in which these are worked, they're just reversed, and that's going to continue to work our post stitches in line with one another. So continue to work across, alternating between 1 back post half double crochet and 1 front post half double crochet, all the way down to those last 2 stitches, and I'll meet you there for the end of row 4. So when we have just 2 stitches remaining, you should have 1 last back post to work around, and then we're going to work a half double crochet into the top of that final stitch. That's not the final stitch, that is. So your total stitch count at the end of row 4 will remain the same in total as row 2, and you should have your 1 half double crochet at each end of your row, and then you should have 25 front post double crochets for your cushion, 53 front post double crochets for your baby and your lapgan sized. You should have 80 front post half double crochets for your throw blanket, and then 88 front post half double crochets for the twin size. I just think it's a little bit quicker just counting your front post double crochets rather than counting all of the stitches. So for row 5, we are very simply repeating row 3, which is of course working that chain of 1, working 1 half double crochet into the same as that chain 1 before working a front post half double crochet around the next, followed by a back post half double crochet around the next. And we're just going to repeat those, alternating between that front post and that back post half double crochet all the way across to those last 2 stitches for row 5, and I will meet you there. Just like we ended row 3, we're ending row 5 with a final front post half double crochet, working 1 final half double crochet into that last stitch. So your stitch count should still be the same as row 3, where you should have 26 front post half double crochets for your cushion, 54 front post half double crochets for your baby and your lapgan sized. You should have 81 for your throw and 89 for your twin. Going into row 6, we begin with that chain of 1, it does not count, and this time we're working 1 single crochet, a US single crochet into the same as our chain 1, and 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So continue working 1 single crochet into each stitch across and I'll meet you at the end of row 6. So at the end of row 6 you should have for your cushion 53 single crochets. For your baby and your lap gown you should have 109. For your throw you should have 163, and for your twin you should have 179 single crochets. For row 7 we're going to be adding in our contrasting colour. So we start by making a chain of 3, and that chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. Now we're going to be changing straight to colour B, so your contrast colour, and I'm just going to change colour by placing that over my hook and bringing it through that 3rd chain. We are then going to work our first popcorn stitch into the next stitch. Because that chain 3 counts as our first stitch, we don't need to work into it. Instead, we're going to work our first popcorn into the next. You need to carry your main colour at the same time. So we're going to work over that. If I can organise my ends, not going to worry about that end for now. So we've got our chain 3, make that tail a little bit longer, which counts as our first stitch. So we're going to begin our popcorn and work over our main colour at the same time. So we yarn over, insert, and we're going to make 4 US double crochets into that next stitch. So that was number 1, number 2, 3, and 4. When we have those 4 US double crochets, we're pulling up our loop and taking out our hook. We are then going to reinsert our hook from the front to the back, placing that loop back on, securing that tightly against our hook and bringing it through. We're then going to drop our contrasting colour, picking up our main colour and pulling through, which counts as a chain 1 that does not count. That will become clear on the next round. So that's our first popcorn made. With A, now that we have that on our hook, we're going to work into the next stitch, working 1 double crochet. We can then swap back to our next colour, working 4 double crochets into the next to start our popcorn. So we yarn over, insert with colour B, bring our loop up and complete that with colour B. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4, all worked into the same stitch. Bring that loop up, insert our hook through that first double crochet that we made, pop the loop back on and pull through, drop our contrast colour. I'm getting tangled already. Make sure you're not twisting yourself too much. We can then pick up our main colour to make a chain 1 of sorts that does not count. Ready to work our next double crochet into the next with colour A. So you can see that we're making these popcorns so that they stand out against our main colour, and by swapping colours across the row they really stand out. So we can drop our main colour, pick up colour B. I'm just going to place my main colour there so I can work over it as I begin these double crochets in colour B. So we yarn over, insert, and work the first of 4 double crochets. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. We bring the loop up, insert our hook through that first double crochet that we made, pop that loop back onto our hook and bring it through. We drop our contrast colour and pull through with our main colour to secure that popcorn and change back. Into that next stitch we work a double crochet and we're ready to go back to working with our contrast colour once again. And as you can see from the back, you cannot see the fact that you're working 2 colours in this row from the back. You can just see how poppy those popcorns are from the front, with those beautiful contrasting coloured double crochets in between. We're going to repeat this all the way across, working our double crochet in our main colour, changing over to colour B to work those 4 double crochets. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. Bring up the loop, pop it back onto your hook, pull through, pull the wrong yarn there, pull through, change back, and you are ready to continue. We're going to repeat this all the way down, and you should end working your popcorn into your second from last stitch, ending with colour A, your main colour, with your final double crochet. So continue working that across, and I'll meet you for row 8. So at the end, I've reached the end of row 7, and I'm absolutely loving how these popcorns stand out between those little coloured intersections. So your stitch count at the end of row 7, if you're making your cushion, you should have 26 popcorn stitches. For your baby and your lap can, you should have 54, 81 for your throw, and 89 for your twin. Let me know in the comments how you got on with your popcorn stitches and changing colours if you were brave enough to do that as well. Let's go into row 8. We are continuing with colour A. Now you can leave colour B attached if you want to, because we're going to be using that in row 10. So I'm not going to fasten mine off. I instead am going to go into row 8. We're starting with our chain of 1, and we are working 1 single crochet into each stitch across. And obviously you're thinking, oh my God, where? So let's do this bit together. We're going to start in that same place as our chain 1 that we just made to begin our row, and then we are effectively working 1 single crochet into each stitch across. Now the way that I've worked mine, all my stitches are in colour A, and my chain ones look like they're in colour B. So you've got a little stitch here, that's a chain 1, and then you've got the top of your popcorn and the top of your double crochet. I'm hoping if you worked yours in the same way I have, you'll look exactly the same. So you have so we're skipping this first chain 1, and we're working a single crochet into the top of our popcorn stitch, and then into the top of our double crochet from the previous row. We then skip that chain 1 once again, and we have the top of our popcorn, which is a little bit smaller on that one, and the top of our double crochet. We skip the chain 1, there's the top of our popcorn under there, so we work there, and then we work into the top of our double crochet. We skip the chain 1, working into the top of the popcorn and into the top of the double crochet. So from the right side, you can see that it doesn't create any spaces. In fact, it fills in any gaps we may have. So I hope you have worked your colours the same as me. That's your chain 1. We're skipping that. We're working into the top of our popcorn, which is here, and into the top of our double crochet. So continue to work that across to the end of the row, and I will meet you there. So I've just reached that first colour change, and it does look a little bit different. So there's our chain 1, and we worked our first popcorn in colour B. So we're just going to single crochet into the top of there, and then we need to work a final single crochet into the top of our chain 3 from the beginning of that previous row. That end we can weave in later. So you should be looking a little bit like that, and from the front it is just absolutely gorgeous. So at the end of row 8, you should be back to your normal stitch count, which for our cushion you should have had 53 single crochets. For your baby and your lap gown, you should have 109 single crochets, 163 for your throw blanket, and 179 for your twin. Row 9 is a repeat of row 2. So we start with our chain of 1. We are then going to work 1 half double crochet into the same as our chain 1. A little bit difficult because it's going back into that chain 3 again. And then we are working 1 half double crochet into each stitch across. So continue across, working 1 half double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you at the end of row 9. Just worked my final stitch in row 2, in row 9, so I still have my same stitch count, and you should too as well. So I just want to point out that my blanket is currently a little bit curly, and if yours is, that's okay. The reason is we have these lovely post stitches that are causing our crochet to look a little bit sad, but it isn't. It just needs a little bit more weight behind it. As we're going into this next section, you'll find that it works a little bit flatter. So it's not that, as long as you can actually lay it flat, there's no problem and your tension is fine. Now row 10, we are changing back, make sure I'm not getting twisted. We are changing back to our contrasting colour, colour B. And I don't know if I didn't actually show you what I was doing there, sorry. So before we turn and make our beginning chain for row 10, we are going to change back to colour B, or our contrasting colour. And I'm simply placing it over my hook, wrapping it as if I'm making a stitch and bringing it through. I'm going to gently pull down on my main colour just to secure it at the base of that stitch. And then we can make our beginning chain of 4 for row 10. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now that chain 4 does count as a US treble crochet, which is the same as a UK double treble. So we are going to be making a row of US trebles. I keep saying treble. US trebles, which is the same as a UK double treble. So for the sake of showing you how to, I'm just going to leave a nice long tail, enough to weave in. And I've fastened off my main colour. Make sure that's accessible for a moment. Get that out of the way. There we are. And then we are carrying on with colour B, and I can work over this end as well. So we're going to be working a double treble in UK terms or a treble crochet in US terms. So to work that stitch, we start by wrapping the yarn over the hook twice. So once and twice. That chain 4 counted as our first, so we're going into our next stitch and we're inserting our hook. I am going to work over my end, so just bear with me while I insert that over. I'm then going to yarn over and bring a loop up, and we should have 4 loops on our hook. Now something you'll notice is I am not bringing my hook up and away from my project right now. I want to keep a lot of tension on this first yarn over. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through those first 2 loops really close to my project, because this is where we add the extra height, because we're then going to yarn over and pull through the next 2, and finally yarn over and pull through the last 2. So I say that this is why I keep stumbling on the word treble crochet, because trebles can cause trouble, and that's because they end up loose and baggy. So yarn over, let's do another one together. We're going into the next stitch. So we've got, oh no, we need to yarn over the hook twice and then insert our hook into the next. We yarn over and bring our hook through, keeping it close to our project. We're not bringing it up because look how big that loop is. So we're keeping it close to our project. We yarn over, pull through those first 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the next 2, yarn over, pull through the next 2. So it keeps these treble crochets, or the double trebles, really nice and tight. In fact, mine is shorter than my chain 4, not too bad. We'll do another one together. So we yarn over the hook twice, insert into the next, yarn over, bring a loop up, keeping it close to your project, yarn over, pull through the first 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. So we're yarning over and pulling through 2 3 times. Just for fun, let's do one more together. So we double wrap the yarn, or wrap the yarn around twice, insert, bring our loop up, keeping our hook close to our project. We yarn over, pull through the first 2, pull through 2, and for a final time, pull through 2. Then we're going to continue to work all the way across, working 1 US treble crochet, 1 UK double treble into each stitch across, and I will meet you at the end of row 10. So once you've worked your rows of treble crochets, you should still have a stitch count of 53 for your cushion, 109 for both your baby and your lap gown, 163 for your throw, and 179 for your twin. Now at the end of row 10, we are changing back to colour B, and to change colour, I'm just going to pull back on my final stitch and change colour just before I close it. So I'm just reinserting, oh no, double wrap, just working my final treble crochet once again, and after that second yarn over pull through, I'm going to complete my stitch with my main colour by just completing that last pull through and pulling down to tighten that stitch. Now we are ready to continue in colour A for row 11. So for row 11, we begin with our turning chain of 1, and we are then working into the same stitch as our chain 1, repeating row 2, working 1 half double crochet into each stitch across. So we're simply working 1 US half double crochet into each stitch across. I'm weaving my ends in a little bit as we go. I know this irritates people, but it saves me a lot of time. So we're just working into the top of each of those treble crochets, working 1 half double crochet across. So continue across and I'll meet you for row 12. So I've just reached the end of this row, and I wanted to let you know about working into the top of your chain 4 when you get back to that last stitch. It's always hard to get your hook through, but it just gives you a neater edge if you can go into that top of the 4th chain. So for row 11, we've repeated row 2. For row 12, we're repeating row 6. So we make our chain of 1, and we are simply working into the same stitch as our chain 1, working a US single crochet. And we're working 1 single crochet into each stitch across to the end of the row. Continue across and I will meet you for row 13. So at the end of row 12, you should still have your same stitch count, and going into row 13, we are repeating row 7, which is that popcorn row once again. We begin by making that chain of 3. I'm going to turn my work. I fastened off colour A, fastened off colour B, ready to reattach. Attached actually, but hey ho. And just changing over after my chain of 3, and then we go, that chain 3 counts as our stitch, so we work our popcorn into the next, working 4 US double crochets all into the same stitch again. That's 3 and 4. We bring up our loop, insert through that first popcorn, well, double crochet that we made, close it before changing back. I'm all a tangle already. Before changing back to our main colour and working our double crochet into the next in colour A. Just as we did before, we can then yarn over, ready to work our popcorn into the next stitch with colour B. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 4, all worked into the same stitch. Bring up your loop, inserting your hook into that first double crochet, tightening and pulling through, ready to change back to colour A for your double crochet into the next. Continue to repeat that across just as we did before, and I will meet you for row 14. So I have just finished my repeat of row 8 for row 14, and we are actually finished with colour B for a while. So I'm going to fasten mine off, and you're welcome to as well. And we're going to go into row 14 with a repeat of row 8, which we continue working with colour A. We start by making that chain of 1. Oops. And then we are just working 1 single crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1, and then we're working into those stitches only, skipping our chain 1s, working 1 single crochet across again, working into the top of our popcorn, the top of our double crochet, skipping that chain 1 and working into the top of our next popcorn and into the next stitch again. Just like we did before, we're just working into the top of our popcorn stitch and into the top of the double crochet from the previous row, skipping that chain 1. And it should look perfect. So continue to work across, repeating row 8, working 1 single crochet into the top of each double crochet and into the top of each popcorn across, and I will meet you for row 15. I've just worked to my last 2 stitches again, repeating this row, and just reminding you that your second from last will probably be in colour B, and then of course we need to work 1 final single crochet into the top of our beginning chain 3, and it's important we hit that chain 3 to give us a good edge to our blanket. We're going to edge them later, so don't worry. So the final row for us to repeat in this section is row 6. So we're going to chain 1 and turn, and then once again we are simply working 1 single crochet into each stitch across. At the end of this row, which is a repeat of row 6, you should still have your same stitch count, which will be for your cushion 53 single crochets, and for your for your baby and lap gown blanket it will be 109 single crochets, 168 single crochets for your throw blanket, and then there will be 179 for your twin. At the end of this row, I'm going to go through all your row repeats so that you know what to go on and make before we come back and finish off the final section together in our patterns. So continue across, working 1 single crochet into each, and I'll meet you at the end of row 15. So at the end of row 15, we have worked the section that we are going to be repeating to create our cushions and our blankets. It's just the number of times that we repeat it that's going to determine how big our blanket or our cushion ends up. So the pattern repeat is rows 2 to 15. So for your cushion, you're going to work rows 16 to 43, repeating rows 2 to 15. That will be 2 times. For the baby blanket, you're going to be working rows 16 to 99, which is repeating rows 2 to 15 for a total of 6 times. 6 more times. For the lap gown, you're going to be working rows 16 to 127, repeating rows 2 to 15, 8 more times. For your throw, you're going to be working rows 16 to 183, repeating rows 2 to 15 for a total of 12 times. And then finally for your twin, you're working rows 16 to 253, repeating rows 2 to 15 for a total of 17 times. Once you've completed all of those rows, we're going to come back and work those final rows together, where we'll be repeating our ribbing section for a final time, and then continuing on to our edging for the blankets, making our second panel for our cushions. I will see you as soon as you get all of those rows done. Remember, if you forget how many rows you need to do, you can always find the link for the written pattern in the description box below for you. I'll see you in a little while. So once you have made all of your repeats, for this cushion version, I've just done 2 further repeats. No doubt you've done an awful lot more for your blankets. We are going to continue on, and regardless of which size you're making, or if you're making a cushion or a blanket, the next 5 rows are the same. We're all going to repeat the same. And essentially what we are doing is we're adding on this final section of ribbing up to the top here to end our pattern. So for row 44, 100, 128, 184, or 254, depending on what you're making, we begin with a turning chain of 1 because we are repeating row 2. And for row 2, we are simply working 1 half double crochet into each stitch across. So continue across, working 1 half double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. So once you have completed that repeat of row 2, you still have your established stitch count, which for the cushion is 53 half double crochets, 109 for the baby blanket and the lap gown. You've got 163 half double crochets for your throw, and then 179 for your twin blanket. We're then going to go on to repeat row 3. So we make a chain of 1. So with row 3, we are repeating that ribbing section once again. So we work 1 half double crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1 before we begin working around that front post of the next, followed by the back post of the next stitch. So continue to repeat row 3 all the way across, working 1 front post half double crochet followed by a back post half double crochet, and I'll meet you for those last 2 stitches. So once you have just those 2 stitches remaining, we work a front post half double crochet around the second from last, working a final half double crochet into that last stitch. We're then going to repeat row 4. So we make our turning chain of 1. We're working our half double crochet into the same as our chain 1, and this time we are working a back post half double crochet, not through the stitch, Fiona, a back post half double crochet around the next, followed by a front post half double crochet around the next. We're going to repeat that all the way across this row over to those last 2 stitches, and I'll meet you there in a few moments. Once we reach those last 2 stitches, we're simply working a back post half double crochet around the second from last and a half double crochet into that last stitch. We're then going to repeat row 5, which is of course a repeat of row 3. So we start with that turning chain of 1. We then work a half double crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1, repeating row 3, beginning with a front post half double crochet, followed by a back post half double crochet around the next. Repeat that all the way across. So you have just 2 stitches remaining where we're going to work 1 final front post half double crochet, and then a half double crochet into the last, and then I'm going to meet you for our final row. So there's just 1 final row to work once you've worked that repeat of row 5. The final row for all the patterns and all the sizes is to simply repeat row 2 for a final time. So we make our turning chain of 1. We are then going to work 1. We can then work 1 single crochet, US single crochet, into each stitch across. If you are making a cushion like me, you can fasten off at the end of this row, and if you skip onto the next chapter, which is how to make your second panel for your cushion, and I will meet you there. For those of you who are making your blanket, work that final repeat of row 2, and I'll meet you to add your edging. So once you've worked that final row and you've reached the end, we are ready to fasten off. We're all fastening off, regardless of whether we're making a blanket or a cushion. We are going to fasten off. Now, if you are making a cushion, you can continue on to making your second panel, and I will meet you there, and then we can join those 2 panels together. If you are making a blanket, just imagine this is a lot bigger than this. We are simply going to work an edging down each side of our blankets, and this will stop a lot of this business. This is just the nature of the stitches when it comes to the ribbing. It pulls the fabric in, but adding on our edging will help straighten out this edge, as you will see very shortly. So for our blanket edging, we need the right side of our project facing us. So we need to be able to see our popcorns so that we can join and work our edging so that that's facing on the right side as well. Now this looks like I have a really bad mistake here. I don't know, this is just this ribbing pulling in. I've got nothing above it to pull it. So if yours looks the same and you're thinking, oh my God, I've got a massive step. If your stitch count is correct, please don't worry. This edging will correct a lot of this. We're going to join into the edge corner stitch, and I'm going to rejoin colour A just by placing it over my hook and pulling through. Then going to make a little chain 1. Now we're going to be working into the row ends, working a single crochet into the end of these rows. So it's up to you how many you place. There is a stitch count based on the row count, but in theory we're working 1 single crochet into each row end. So I'm going to start by working a single crochet where we just joined, and then you can see we had that half double crochet row. So I'm just working into the base of that. And effectively what we're doing by working into the row ends is just neatening up this edge, working either into the row ends or into the middle of the taller rows. When we get to one of those, I'll show you what I mean. So I'm just placing a stitch roughly at the end of each row, and that will help even out whatever mine's looking like at the moment. So I'm just working here, and then we've reached, I don't know if you remember that on your popcorn row we had either a chain 3 or a double crochet at the end. So I'm going to put my hook, I've worked into the row end, I'm going to put my hook through the middle of that chain 3 to work my next single crochet. Then I'm working into that next row end where the hole is. There's another row end where that hole is. I'm working into that. We're just going to continue in that fashion. Move those ends out of the way. So you can see we've got a row end here. So we're just inserting and working a single. Now when we reach this chain 4, which is from our beginning of our treble crochet rows, we can work into the top, halfway down, roughly. So I'm placing 2 along that treble crochet, and then I'm working into that row end at the bottom. And we're just going to continue working down evenly. So I don't know if you remember how bad my edge looked a moment ago and how twisted it looked. You see how it just straightens out our edging by working into these row ends. I'm not going to say it wouldn't benefit from the blocking, but hey ho. So we are going to continue to work all the way down. It certainly did sort out whatever that mess was at the top there along those ribbed stitches, didn't it? So we're just going to continue to work all the way down to the end here, and then we're going to fasten off, and then you can rotate to rejoin, making sure the right side is facing you again, and repeat that all the way across, working those single crochets evenly across the end of your rows, and then you'll be able to fasten off and weave in all those ends to complete your blanket. For your second panel in your cushion, you're simply going to make a slip knot. We're going to make a beginning chain of 54. So make your chain of 54 and I'll meet you for the remainder of row 1. Once you've made your beginning chain of 54, we're going to work into that second chain from hook, yarning over, ready to work, 1 half double crochet into that second chain from hook. We are then working 1 half double crochet into each chain across. So continue to work the rest of row 1, working 1 half double crochet into each chain, and I'll meet you for row 2. Once you've worked 1 half double crochet into each stitch across for row 1, you should have a total stitch count of 53 half double crochets, which is the same as our first panel. For rows 2 to 40-ish, we are going to simply work a chain of 1 before working 1 half double crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1, because that does not count, and then work 1 half double crochet into each stitch across. And we're going to repeat row 2 until it is the same length as our first cushion panel. So it's going to take a good 40 rows, I would estimate, but just double check. You may need to do more, you may need to do less, so just test it up against the width, up against the length of your first panel, and once it measures the same in height from this side all the way up to the top, we are ready to fasten off our second panel, make sure that all our ends are woven in, and then come along for the next chapter where we're going to be joining these panels together and finishing off our cushions. I will see you shortly. It is a whole day later and I have finished my second panel where I'm going to join my first panel onto, and I'm going to use a stitch marker in each of the corners, which is going to help me make sure I work through the right point on each panel. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a stitch marker in each corner, and to make things easier for you joining yours, I'd recommend you do the same. Just placing it through that edge corner on all the corners. So once we've marked all of these corners together, we're going to rejoin in one of our corners with our main colour, which for me is that continued purple. So I can move this stitch marker straight away. I'm going to make sure that we have the right side of our cushion facing, so the main panel with all the texture is our right side, so that the closing stitches we're going to make will also face this way and give us a really pretty edge. To join my yarn, I'm simply, get rid of that tail for a moment. To join my yarn, I'm simply going to place the yarn over the hook and bring it through both panels, making a chain 1 just to secure that for a moment. And throughout this, we need to make sure that we are working through both panels. And the reason that I've kind of secured the other end is so I can make sure I'm not working through too many or too few stitches. We are simply going to be working 1 US single crochet into these row ends, joining these 2 panels together. So making sure we work through both panels at the same time. So I'm going to reinsert where we've made that first chain 1 and work our first single crochet. Then we're working into the row ends and working into a similar point on the other panel as well. I'm just going to continue to work down, working into these row ends, evenly single crocheting. Now, because our rows on each panel are different heights, we only have the half double crochet rows on the other side. We're going to have to take care that when we're laying our panels together, that we don't have an excess of fabric at the back or an excess of fabric on the front. We want them to be quite evenly placed. So this is not a quick process. We are going to take our time and work through these row ends and through a similar place on the other panel as well. Now, one of the joys of this edging is, and working it straight into this cushion, is it's not going to create any extra bulk when we insert our cushion pad. If we had worked a row of single crochets all the way around and then joined them, it just adds a little bit too much bulk on the edge of this cushion. Whereas now, by just working this single row all the way around our cushion through both panels, we're going to successfully join them, and it's going to be a really nice edging. It will also straighten out any unevenness caused by our ribbing or our front post and back post stitches, because mine has certainly pulled in those areas. We're going to continue to work all the way down these row ends, placing these single crochets evenly, so not too many, not too few. We don't want any puckering, we don't want any stretching of the fabric, and we just need to check every now and again that we're not going to be left with too many stitches, so just kind of readjusting it and then working the next one, working through both panels. This technique does take a little bit of practice to do it, you know, confidently. We're just making sure that you're working through both panels, evenly working those single crochets along, and literally all I'm doing is giving it a bit of a play around, making sure that it's even, kind of pushing it together with my fingers and working through, and on the back just creating a nice close. Continue to repeat that all the way down, and I'll meet you for our first corner. So once you've worked all the way down your cushion and joined both sides, we should be back to that corner stitch that we've marked. Just going to remove that stitch marker. Going to insert my hook on both panels into that kind of first stitch of the end rows, and we're going to work one single crochet, a chain one, and a second single crochet into that same stitch, which creates a little corner for our cushion. We then, this is a nice easy bit because we can just work along, making sure we work through each stitch on our cushion. It could be that one end will have your beginning chain, which is where I am on the other side. So just working through the other side of the beginning chain on the other panel. So we're going to work one single crochet into each stitch around to the next corner, and then repeat that corner again. We'll then be ready to work back up this side, and I'm going to meet you here ready to insert our cushion pads and work our final row and work our final corner. So continue working one single crochet across through both panels. I am very cheekily weaving in another end as we go. Work your corner here. So in this next marked stitch, we're working a single crochet, chain one, single crochet, work back down these row ends, working through both sides. Repeat your corner here, and I'll meet you there, ready to add in our cushion pillow and finish off our projects. So I have reached my last marked stitch, so I'm just going to work that final corner. So single crochet, chain one, and another single crochet, and the fun bit is then putting your cushion inside. Once you've inserted your cushion, make sure you're happy with the positioning. It's not too far over on one side than the other, and make sure your corners are in your corners. Getting your hand right in there and pushing that corner in on both sides. There is nothing worse than it not being where you want it to be. Is the top right? Make sure it's not too far over on one side than the other, because I don't know about you, but I'm not intending on sewing a zip here. I'm just going to work a final row of single crochet all the way along the top to join here, just as we did when we joined the other end. It's definitely the easier side to join. I have my beginning chain closest to me, so I'm just going to use the stitches to know where I'm inserting my hook, and of course we're inserting into the stitch opposite as well, and working all the way across. Definitely a little bit more awkward with the cushion pad in place. We're just working all the way across back to where we joined our yarn. We need to finish off this corner, so that's where I'm going to meet you. So I'm just inserting my hook back where we first joined to work an extra single crochet, make a chain of one, and then we are slip stitching to join, ready to fasten off, and just weave in that last end. Well, actually, I've just found another one I need to weave in. But yeah, that has completed our Popalicious crochet cushions. I really hope you've enjoyed making your own. I would love for you to tag me into a photo of your finished project so that I can celebrate your success. And if you haven't already, go ahead and make your corresponding blanket now you've worked out all these stitches. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I will see you in the next video.